And we're back here in Rabbi Tatz's work on free will. And we've been discussing the last few weeks about this idea that although that naturally everybody is equipped with free will, and the truth of the matter is everybody would want to do what is right over what is wrong. You'd rather pick something that's going to bring you blessing and success rather than curse. So then why do we make mistakes? So we pointed out because we live in a world of illusion. We live in a world of distortion. We live in a world of fantasy where we don't see things clearly the way that they are. So he says like this: if the distortion of perception that is caused by the choice to see reality in man's image instead of God's is the problem, meaning I'm looking at things from my perspective now, I'm not looking at it from the godly perspective, the solution must be then to sacrifice the ego. If I'm getting in the way, if my ego and my desires are getting in the way of making the right choice, so then let me just then humble myself, get rid of my own meshugas, my own foolishness. Let me get rid of my own silly desires and my wants and the like. Let me sacrifice the ego, as he's calling it, to reconnect the reality. The false version of man must dissolve. The will must give itself up. So I want things, but how to know what I want is right? So says Rabbi Tatz, it's probably not. If you really want something badly, and it's not in line with Hashem's will, so then you're going to have problems. That means you're going to be looking for things to do in your life and to amass in your life and to get in your life and the situations get involved with, which is not what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. So then you can't make the right decision. So if you can't make the right decision, so what are you supposed to do? So he says, it must be that we have to humble ourselves, extract the ego out of ourselves, give up our will for the sake of doing the will of Hashem. And he says like this, and he really says this is the last, I believe this is the last, it's not the last chapter, or almost about the last chapter, but it's almost the last chapter. He's going to redefine what BECHIRA, what free will is. Meaning, up until this point, we thought we understand what free will is? Kind of? Yeah? Kind of. He's going to redefine the definition of what BECHIRA really is, and it's a fascinating idea, and it's something we have to keep in mind. The correct application of free will is to use your free will to annul itself. What does that mean? If you go back to the original test of time, which was Adam Arishon in Gan Eden, and he was not asked to do something, he was asked not to do. He was not asked to do a particular mitzvah. He said, the whole world belongs to you, do whatever you want. Hashem said, but I don't want you to eat from this tree. So therefore, the real test of will is in its control, and the ordeal is to give it back to Hashem. Meaning Hashem is telling you, do you know what your test is? Don't eat from the tree. So your free will is, don't give in. That's it. I'm not telling you to do something. I'm telling you, do not give in to this particular thing. Which means that the whole test of BECHIRA is, I'm giving back to Hashem basically what He asked me to do. And he brings a Gemara. And the Gemara says in Bava Basra, I'm sure, Victor, you remember this from Daf Yomi, it was Daf 57b, so that was only 100 days ago. Yeah? So the Gemara over there says the following. There's a guy that's traveling down a road, and there's two roads he could go down. One road has most likely there are women that are down by the riverside, and they are washing the laundry. And when they would wash the laundry, they used to pull up their skirts, their dresses, so that their dresses would not get wet. So he could walk down this path and give himself a test and say, you know what? I know there's going to be women there. They're going to be washing their clothing. They're going to be in the river. They're going to have their dresses pulled up, so their thighs are going to be showing. But you know what? I want to show what a strong person of free will that I am. I'm going to walk past and I'm not going to look to the side to see what they look like. That will be the nisan, that will give him the test that I do. However, if the Gemara says over there that if there was an alternative path that this man could have gone down, he did not have to walk past the watering hole, past the river where the women are. He could have gone on the outskirts of town and not been in contact with these women whose thighs are showing. And he decided that he's still going to go down that path and test himself to see if he could hold his eyes back from looking. Says the Gemara, he's considered that he failed despite the fact that he did not look at the inappropriate site. I have two choices. Either put myself into a test or avoid the test altogether. So you might say, well, avoid the test, that's easy. What do I want an easy life for? I want to really rack up the reward over here, and I want to show HaKadosh Baruch how strong I am. So I'm going to walk down the path where I know for sure there's going to be a test, but I'm going to pass that test. I'm going to go like this. I'm not going to look. So, says the Gemara, you made the wrong choice. The real choice you should have made was, don't enter into the test at all. Says Rav Tatz, he may have passed the test at the point of temptation, but he failed the test of the choice of paths. It's true that when you walk down by the river, and there were women that were washing their laundry, and their dresses were pulled up, and their thighs were showing, and you went like this while you walked past. It's true. You passed that test. You didn't look. But says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who asked you to put yourself into a test? I'm testing you all day long. There's plenty of tests that you're going to go through. You don't have to invent a test. Rather, the real test is avoid the test. Avoid situations where you know for sure that don't go to places where you know you're going to be tested. You are better off not going to that place at all.
When we go to these places, we should go the other way completely, right?
So,
because we are going into.
I'll tell you the truth. There's different ways that I could get home every single day, and there's one way which takes a little bit longer, but I avoid Highland and Hollywood, and I avoid that whole area, and I do that because I don't want to go there. I don't need to test myself to see, but it's more than that. I'm not going to pass the test every time. If I have to drive, and when you drive, your eyes have to be open, right? There was just one of the great Rosh Yeshivas of America just passed away. It's probably already a month or so ago. His name was Rav, I forget how you pronounce the last name. Hilue was his last name. He was the Shiva of Chaim Berlin in New York. He grew up in America. And as anybody as kids know, that when they're 15 and a half, they already can't wait to get their permit and start driving. He lived in America all of his life. He never got a driver's license. He said because when you drive, your eyes have to be on the road. And sometimes you have to turn to the right, and sometimes you have to turn to the left. And I have no idea what I'm going to see walking on the streets. I have no idea what the billboards are going to be, who's going to be walking across my car. Summer in New York, you never know. So he said, I would rather not have the pleasure of driving, not have the freedom to get into my car whenever I want to and go wherever I need to go, because in that way I will guard my eyes from seeing things that I should not be seeing. Now that's really this Gemara over here. If I have a choice between the road less traveled, which is Hashem said, just go there and avoid the test, and the road where I'm putting myself into a place where there is real challenges going on, I'm better off not investing in the challenge because, again, we're going to have to explain over here, he should not have been on the road in the first place. Entering unnecessary temptation is a fundamental error. Why would you go to a place where you know you're going to be tested? A guy is an alcoholic, and this may be a little bit of the AA mentality. I once had a guy there's a program called Partners in Torah. People learn on the phone with non-religious people, and they make a connection. So you could have, Yankel Schwartz from Lakewood is learning with, John Schwartz, who lives in Calabasas. John's not religious. Yankel is religious, and they learn on the phone once a week. So I get a call one year before Purim from somebody who's learning with somebody on the telephone. This guy's in New York, and the guy literally in Calabasas, somewhere like that. So can he come to your house for the Purim Suda? I said, sure, with pleasure. Not a problem. We'll be happy to have him. So the guy comes to our house. He looks like a friendly, nice guy, normal guy, middle-aged fellow. And, everybody's drinking already. And I come and I offer him a glass of wine. He says, no, I'm an alcoholic. I said, you're an alcoholic? You look such a nice guy. So if you're an alcoholic, you probably want wine then. What do you mean you're an alcoholic? He said, no. I already went through AA. And AA says once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. That means that they understand that if you put yourself back into a situation where you're forced to test yourself, how much can I drink and how much can I not drink? There are great chances in your life that you are going to fail and put yourself in a situation which you should not be in. And therefore, entering unnecessary temptation, that is the fundamental error itself. And he says like this, a class or Musar insight is that the battles of temptation that are voluntarily chosen cannot be won. If you bring yourself into a situation of temptation and you tell yourself, but I'm not gonna give in, for sure I'm gonna pass such a thing, they cannot be won. Now, why cannot they not be won? I'm a strong person. I trust myself. No, either one succumbs to the temptation. For example, he'll look at the illicit side, like the case of the Gemara. He's going to walk down the path, so maybe 10 times he does it, he goes like this. One time he says, let me see if I can do it without my hand over my eyes. Well, and he looks. Yeah, so he looks. So he fails the test. And he falls into taiva, to his lust. Or, another side he says, you might look away. You might be modest. You'll look away, I'm not going to look. But now you're going to become a Balgaiva, you're going to have a lot of hardiness. He said, I did it. You see, I am strong enough to be able to overcome the test. I learned in Rabbi Tatz's Sefer, if you go down that path, you failed the test already. I'll show him. I'll go down the path and I'll pass the test. So then what ends up happening, when you pass the test that you were not supposed to put yourself through, you end up having gaiva, you have hardiness. The only solution is to decline the test altogether. This is the central function of humility, the key to all character development. So I have to be humble enough to know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in His infinite wisdom, He will give me all the tests that I need to go through. But anything more than that, I cannot put myself through. And as a matter of fact, if I have a choice to avoid going down that path or going down that path, if I have a choice to avoid going to that place or not going to that place, and I know that in that particular situation, it's really not going to be good. Last night I had to officiate at a chasana, at a wedding, and it was the couple is not so religious, and their friends are even less religious than they are, and it was Israeli-ish type of a crowd, and I didn't really know what I was getting myself into until I actually walked into the room. When I walked into the room, I literally felt that I'm standing on the beaches of Tel Aviv. Literally. And people are drinking, and they're going wild, and the music is pounding, pounding, pounding. Actually, my wife was with me, and we just went off, and we sat in a corner, and we basically waited until they called us, and it was time to do the wedding. Because what are I going to walk around and try to guard my eyes when it's impossible to guard my eyes? Not look when it's impossible not to look? What am I going to do? So we're already in the Nisayin, we're already in the challenge. There's nothing, I couldn't get out of it. I'm supposed to officiate at the wedding, there's nothing to do. But what he's saying is that you have to be humble enough to know where you should be and where you should not be. It was too late for me. I was already in the situation. There was no place for me to go. So what did we just went in the corner. We sat, turned around to the wall, basically. And when it was time to do the ksuba, we did the ksuba. When it was time to do the chuppah, fine. But yes.
They're cruises.
The what?
Cruises.
Cruises. Yes, that's why I don't go on cruises.
Hey, they're kosher cruises.
What's kosher besides the food?
I said, how can it be kosher if you are watching all the things and doing all the things.
That you have a great question, Sam. You have a great question. You have to see if the OU is giving their stamp of approval to the kashrus of that boat, or Bedatz Yerushalayim is giving their hechsher over there. It's kosher food and kosher environment are two different things. You know, in Yerushalayim, so there's the strongest hechsher is Bedatz Yerushalayim. For many, many, many years, Bedatz would not give a hechsher to a restaurant that had seats, because they didn't want people to come in and start mixing together, especially the pizza shops. They didn't want on Motzi Shabbos, the boys and the girls are going to come into the restaurant together and they're going to order pizza, and the next thing you know, they're standing in line together and they're schmoozing with each other and sitting down. So for years and years and years and years, they would not give a hechsher to such a restaurant. Whatever things evolved over time, and now they have restaurants, you can go and sit down and the like, but it could be in certain of these pizza shops, they still wouldn't, because they don't want to be responsible to put a young man and a young woman in a challenging situation that they shouldn't be in. So listen, we'll conclude with these words. The highest use of free will is to preserve it pure and untainted. Again, I don't have to use my free will to overcome a challenge. I could leave it pure and untainted by not having to get in that situation at all. The correct assertion of will is in the avoidance of ordeals. I'm trying to avoid situations that are not good for me. And that choice is greater than all the unbidden heroics of entering free will ordeals, even if all the battles are won. People think, it's, kind of a life, is this religious life over here? You're so restrictive and you can't do this and you can't do that, you can't go here, you can't go there. Says Rav Tatz, that is BECHIRA. The Torah, first of all, built in to the system of the Torah. It protects us from many, many of these things. The Chazal came along and they made many fences in halacha to protect us from all these things. And yet still there's plenty of areas where we could fail. And the real challenge of our free will is, don't put yourself in a situation where you could fail. Even if you pass with flying colors every time, you already lost the battle. The humility allows man to manifest as an aspect of Hashem, to give back his separateness and paradoxically achieve reality in that sacrifice. Meaning, when I focus in on the will of Hashem and I become more godly rather than human over here in this world, so then that's the real sacrifice. The real sacrifice, not even being exposed or going into such a situation. And that's why at the end of davening every day, we ask Hashem, don't bring me al yedei nisayin, don't bring me to a test, Hashem. It's true that the purpose of life is to withstand ordeals, and the reward that we're going to receive is great for succeeding. But the tzaddikim say, withhold your tests and the reward, just do not let me damage your world. If every nisayin, every challenge that I don't pass is damaging to myself and the world around me, so then tzaddikim say, look, I'm willing to forgo my own reward in the world to come for overcoming the test. Just leave me away from a test that I could fail. In that way, the world's going to be a better place. So says Rabbi Tatz, an amazing thing, that the real BECHIRA starts before you actually get into the test. Because many times if you think about it throughout the day, many times we put ourselves in a situation where we're forced to be tested. Why would you do that? Why would you force yourself to be in a situation where there's going to be a spiritual battle that's going on, and we know our track record, very often we succumb, or we get weak, or we fail the test. Why would we do that? And therefore, be smart and really use your free will, and that starts even before you get to the area of the test. The real test is to know not to engage yourself in such a situation.
You realize that by those standards, it's an impossibility not to commit sins. I don't care what anybody says.
Which standards?
Everything that you're not supposed to do. If you go and look at somebody in a bikini suit, and say, you are tempted, that's a sin. It doesn't matter what you do if you're always sinning all day long, every day. So
no, there's plenty of things that we can do that's productive.
Yeah, sure. You can come to shul and pray morning and
hey, how did you know? Sam, how did you know?
Very hard.
I don't know. That's what they say, that to be happy, the first thing you have to be is to be ignorant.
Not true, but the bottom line is that it's a work in progress, and we're working on it, and we just understand where we could avoid putting ourselves in a challenging situation. For example, don't go down to Zuma Beach when it's 95 degrees outside and it's a Sunday and you know the whole world's going to be there. We don't do that because we know that it's going to be hard, impossible to overcome such a test.
But that applies to that. That applies to a million things that is in the Torah.
Yes, that's correct. Again, we're growing little by little.